Hi, I'm Meenakshi Shedde. I'm India and South Asia delegate to the Berlin Film Festival, and I'm very, very delighted to have Alia Bhatt with me today. Thank you for joining me, Alia.
Thank you for having me.
It's an extraordinary achievement for any actress, especially one so young, to have three films in Berlin this year. Alia had Highway in 2014. She had the kick-ass Gully Boy in 2019, and now the absolutely also kick-ass Gangubai Kathiawadi. How does it feel to have your third film in Berlin at such a young age?
Well, Berlin's been very lucky for me so far, so actually it feels great. For me, age is just a number, so I somehow don't comprehend this young age, old age situation. It's like I'm just happy that three of my films, have been selected, and Gangubai is extremely close to my heart and very, very special. And I also believe it's a film that will be thoroughly enjoyed there. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And you'll be opening there the Friedrichstadt Palast, where
Yes.
you already had a sold out world premiere with Gully Boy already. So it's like coming back to a familiar space. What are your expectations of Berlin?
Well, the last time I remember when I was there for Gully Boy and we watched the film with the audience, it was one of the most exhilarating experiences to hear them respond to every beat, moment through the film. It was genuinely one of a kind. And Gangubai is that kind of film where the audience actually can get very involved with the claps and the CTs and the involvement, because it's that kind of dialogue bazi, very moment driven film. So I'm quite curious to see the way they respond to the film.
I'm sure they'll love it. I also wanted to ask because you played a sexually abused woman quite often before, not often. Well, you had Highway in Udta, Punjab, but this is like your full-fledged role as a sex worker, which is the main role. How do you? Is that something you is like on your bucket list as a repertoire as an actress, or?
I don't go with choose roles as per their profession. I choose it as per the character and the struggle or the journey or the experience of the character. Even though this is set up in Kamatipura, etc., that's more the backdrop. It's not really the soul of the film is the person and what she does for people, and how in general as a society we can get a bit harsh onto people and start treating them in a way which they don't really deserve. So it gives us perspective on how we function as a society, and she questions that. Anybody who questions the ways is always a very interesting person, because there's a certain place that she comes from. So we get into the way, the why, the when, the how, and how she impacts so many lives for so many years.
Yeah. So also, we had, for example, we had The Dirty Picture by Milan Luthri earlier, also on a similar, on a sex worker. On Silk Smita was also a biopic. But that was like also, I mean, although she had incredible power in her lifetime in a certain way, she also died a miserable death of suicide. And for me, it was a very male-gazy thing. So for me, it's very interesting how Gangubai Kathiawadi's Sanjay Leela Bhansali, the director, really taps into his feminine side with great empathy, and he makes you exactly the opposite of a victim. It's really a very empowered role. He has many aspects about, as you said, empowering other women. But of all of these things, which aspect of her personality really appealed to you the most?
I think exactly this, that she's, of course, she has the angst of what happened to her, but she doesn't let that take over her actions. Like she doesn't sit, and not like these women don't know how to laugh or don't know how to have a good time, but they're just so rejected constantly that they don't find the place in them to fight. And I think that's what the film is about, where she becomes that voice for rights, and she has to fight quite a few people on the way. The struggle's not easy, but at the end of the day, she gives herself this thing, and like that kind of courage and that strength. So that strength comes from a place of angst. So
Right.
that's what I enjoyed, that sort of dichotomy between angst and strength.
Being able to convert that. Fantastic. Also, I really liked how, I mean, does it mean something significant to you? Because Bollywood is by and large, I find, fairly sexist industry, fairly misogynist, starting with heroine salaries, for example, in general. But it's not so often we have an entirely woman-driven role where it's a very heroine-driven film. And even someone like Ajay Devgan, his guest appearance, and it's really your film all the way. Is that something you see as very significant, or it's just one more thing that you do? Do you see it as significant in the larger sense for Bollywood, what you're doing?
I don't think, firstly, I don't think it's been like this. Strong female characters have been written from the time of Mother India. So it's not like that never existed. I also don't believe Bollywood is sexist all the way. I feel like there are people who are sexist from time to time, but they could be a part of different industries. They don't have to be a part of the film industry. I don't believe the Hindi film industry is, of course, over the years there have been a couple of people, but that's not because they're apart from Bollywood. The pay parity also is a debate which I don't prefer not to get into in terms of like why people are not getting paid what they're getting paid. There is possible data to collect that a female-centric film, that's as people say, does not land up doing as much at the box office than a male-centric film. Now that's not a representation of Bollywood, that's just representation of the society. But this is not about female-centric, male-centric. This film is not about gender. This film is about characters and their spirit. And that's something that I think now with time we should start getting comfortable with, that the gender does not define you. You can be a male, he, she, they, them, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's your personality that eventually makes up for who you are. Your gender is just a part of it. Sure. So similarly, if Gangubai was written as a male character, but the point is, it's the struggle of a person coming through, rising from the ashes, being a voice of reason, fighting for people. It's heroic in its tonality and in its spirit. The gender is one part of it. I've always picked up characters and not really cared about the gender.
Sure.
So that's what I believe. But one thing I do hope from the film is that yes, the box office number is able to, like for a film like Razi, for example, it did quite well at the box office.
Sure.
For the kind of film people say it was.
Yeah.
But it really hit home. But I hope to push the envelope a little bit with Gangubai in terms of the numbers of footfalls and people that come and watch the film.
Sure.
Because that will give a bit of a light of like, okay, yes, a female-centric film can also do the numbers.
Exactly.
But that's something that we have to time and again try and prove. It has happened before. It's happened with a film like with a film like Razi, like with Tanu Weds Mannu, that also
Sure.
did very well at the box office. So it's not like it's not happened. It just has to possibly maybe happen more often for it to
momentum.
become a reality.
Right, right. Do you find a difference in, like I find Sanjay Bhansali really tapping to his feminine side and writing with great empathy and giving you a real kick-ass character, right? She's exactly the opposite of victimhood. When you have roles written by women, for example in Razi, which was co-written by Meghna Gulzar and Bhavani Iyer and directed by Meghna, and also in Gangubai, it's screenplays by Sanjay Bhansali but also by Utkarshni Vashisht. So it's also another woman who's bringing. Are you able to tap into other deeper sensibilities from your own self, from your personal beliefs when women write, or that really makes no difference at all?
I think it makes no difference, and I think actually it's quite attractive when a man is directing and writing for the woman and thinking for the woman. I think it's quite cool, and quite opposite when the woman is thinking and writing for the man.
Sure.
Like I thought it's amazing that Zoya Akhtar directed Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara with 3 men, and now Farhan Akhtar is directing Jile Zara with 3 women.
Right.
Like it's like, okay, what is this whole thing about? Like the gender has nothing to do with it. It's the perspective and what you add to it, and like the way Sir sees me as in the film, there's a totally different lens to it.
Correct.
And that's maybe given me a different perspective and a different vision as well.
Yeah.
So you're constantly learning that way.
Lovely. What would you say was the most challenging scene for you? Like maybe you had several retakes, or you just were like.
See, I'm not someone who gets thrown off by retakes. I think retakes are a part of arriving at the final magical moment. Now, if it takes a year and if you're okay with it, then great, as long as you get that moment.
Right.
The whole film was difficult for me because it was a character on a person that I don't know much of, or the world that I've not been exposed to. So I have to create from scratch in terms of my imagination. So there's no one particular scene that I find difficult or challenging.
And when Sanjay got you on board, how did he get you on board? So what, does he do a narration, or what is the starting process?
He doesn't do a narration, but yeah, he presents the script and then there is a narration. But
Somebody
then
else does the narration.
Yeah, and then you discuss it with him. And sometimes he wants, if you want, he'll send you in the room and you said you read the script if you don't want a narration.
Okay.
The script doesn't leave the.
So he doesn't actually tell you his vision at that point as it happens.
Before.
No. Okay.
First he'll give you, that's the way it's happened with me. First you hear the story, then we'll chat. Then what he says post that, because for him also he knows it's just a blueprint. It's just the start off point.
Right.
Then the creation happens on set. There he totally goes all out with description, adjectives, everything. Like it's like we talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and that's what actually makes the film come alive. It's all his words that he puts. He's like, I'm just planting this in your head, I'm planting it in your head, you keep telling me, and that he just genuinely is planting it, and then a plant is growing out of that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Just wonderful. Can you tell us what was your most special moment at Gully Boy screening at the Berlinale Palast, the Friedrichsglas Palast? Or in Berlin in general? Because that was your big one there, right? After Highway.
I think that's, as I mentioned in my earlier answer, watching the film with the audience, that was possibly the most special.
It's lovely. We look forward very much to having a great time at Berlin. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.